you very much for playing the Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Rijen. I wrote the Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011.
Okay.
We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves.
Okay.
I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here.
Everything is floating.
It's 2008. Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, you know, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveyWreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
I feel like I'm in a museum. This is cool. It's very sci-fi. Okay, I like this one. Look, it's me. Warning, whisper machine status active.
Warning, whisper machine active. Shift destruction.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
This is much scarier than I expected it was gonna be. Oh no, oh no. Light.
You can click to fire the gun.
This one looks like my room. Actually, they both do. Pew pew, pew 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 pew, pew pew, pew 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 pew. I like this one. Let's go. Pew 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 pew. Pew. Is there anything? Oh, there is something here. Pew 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 pew. This is cool.
Security hull breached. Hostile alien life form inbound.
Oh no, I can't shoot. Why can't I shoot?
It kinda looks like this
out of
game was
bullets.
abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anyway. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
That is space. Oh my god, that's space. Sorry, that was probably really jarring. I love space.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
Wait, what? That's great. this is my favorite. I want this to be the banner for my channel, but I can't just steal it. Sad. Super sad day. I'm super sad I'm out of bullets too. I don't know what to do about that. All I can do is make the sounds now and
Apparently, this space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past that.
No. I wanted to play the labyrinth. Aww. Wait, I can go back.
Or if you'd really like to solve the labyrinth, you're welcome to do that too.
Yes. Okay, let's stick to the right wall. I've already lost track of where the walls are. Oh, this is terrible. We're gonna die in here. Yes. We can totally find our way out. Maybe. I'm losing confidence really quickly. I'm not gonna lie to you. Oh no, dead end. Okay. Still sticking to the right wall, right? Never mind. Let's stick to the left wall and get back, because I'm scared. I apologize if anyone's getting nauseous watching this. Oh, where am I? This way, maybe. I keep finding dead ends. Is this it? No. Back again. This way. I have no confidence in this. I get the feeling I skipped a few walls and now I'm just going around a post. Okay. Now I follow this wall. This wall is also a post, isn't it? A lot of these are just posts. I think. Where am I going? This got complicated fast. Where do I go? Oh no. I made mistakes. Okay. I'm gonna head in this direction no matter what. I'm gonna try and go what feels like forward. Okay, I'm already stopped from doing that. This is stressful. Mixed ASMR, the most stressful channel on YouTube. Dead end. We're on the other way. This way. I'm not at all keeping track of where I've gone. Okay, so there's a wall. Goes this way. I could go down this first one. That's a dead end. And this last one's a dead end, which means it has to be one of these three other space things. Let's try the one on the left. Okay, and that leads down these three little passages. Okay, what if I go down this way? And look there. That still lets me go forward. If my goal is just to go forward for no reason, I'm set. And my mouse keeps disconnecting. So occasionally I lose the ability to use it and I've lost track of where I am. Let me out. This is not a dance. I'm screaming for help. I'm crying for help. Please come let me out. There's a black spot. Is that a good sign? Let's look for more black spots. There's one. There's no lighting. Oh, it's on the floor. Duh. Sorry.
game is
path
called
this way.
Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
Oh, I can't go down. Never mind. I was all excited. I'm not on beat at all. Whatever. Sorry.
Security code breached.
Let me
Hostile
through.
alien life form.
Yes. No, I want to go through. Why can't I go through?
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin shield activation.
Oh, this is pretty.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
I love this. Even with the scary alarms, it's really calming. Maybe I'll replace it with something calm. Maybe I did a long time ago. Who knows?
Apparently this space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting.
Okay.
The game has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Okay, cool.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering the whisper machine. We could disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature.
Okay.
If you...
I'll
you're
stand
allowed
in
to
it.
Stop the beam.
I'll do it.
It's so much to ask, but
I'll
for
do
all
it.
of our lives,
Yes.
would you do it?
Yes.
Could you give yourself...
Let me in there. Yeah, it's Parkway. Let's go.
Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
All right. Okay, let's try. I kind of feel like I'm doing this so that the disembodied pretty lady voice will date me, but you know, whatever. See you in heaven. Whew. Wait. Oh man, I messed up. Oh, I didn't mess up. Oh goodness.
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch,
look.
but Coda identifies something
There's the
human
labyrinth.
about it. Like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
Okay. The past was behind her. I feel like I'm in a game museum. It's fun. Oh no, I can't. Oh, I
Yep,
can
in
only
this
walk
game
backwards.
you can only walk backwards.
Thank you, narrator. I tried to hit other buttons, but game didn't have it. So, and little off center. Still a little off center. There we go.
So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Coda's trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
past was behind her. But the future could not be seen. Why does the future keep changing? Oh, there's another room. I didn't see it. I thought that was it. I have very low expectations here. When she stops and looks, it becomes clearer. But if the future is always behind her... Wow, that looks cool, actually. How will she find the strength to confront it?
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
Yay. Spooky. Okay, this one I can move in all directions. Clicking doesn't seem to do anything, but I'll follow the path. You are now entering. What happens if I go the other way? Oh, end of the world. Okay. Oh, this is spooky, spooky. I am now entering.
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting.
Okay, I trust you.
Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games. I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games.
Did that say nonsense?
He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it.
Nearly every
Once he
direction.
stopped work on a game, like, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
What's over here?
I know it's tempting, but there's actually nothing over here. Sorry.
Oh, whatever, I'm still going. Clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. That's too bad. It looks so interesting. Clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. Up the stairs. Clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. Wow, this is going for a while. Is everything still normal back there?
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Can I just keep doing this? Will it actually stop me completely, or will I ever get up there? Whatever. I won't waste your time. I'll do that on my own sometime. Clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. What? I'm scared. Stand on an X staring at a bear for 3 hours. You run a shop inside your own body.
A
selling
room
your
that's
organs
warm and nice
strategically to make the most
and
money
filled
before
with
you
little
die.
ideas for games.
You start in a small room until you realize you can just walk through the walls. The game is nothing but giant
Coda would
blocks
often
of
tell me
text
that he
explaining
didn't
what's
mind if
happening.
people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
A stranger appears. A game of only posters and concept art. I wanted to see that. Rude. Ready, set, fiche. Wee. I'm also playing this to get ready for bed, actually. I'm scared. I don't think I can't jump. I might be able to get back up.
Well, this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle.
Never.
Go ahead and see if you can solve it.
Okay.
get that solution because we're going to see this puzzle again soon.
These
We're gonna
three
see it a
dots are
lot.
here a lot. Anyways, I realize I'm acting like I'm pointing to them, but instead I'm just doing a weird V shape. I mean like with my head. We. Anyway, remembering the door puzzle. Lots of orange here. We.
So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. All right, now I'm going to modify the game again so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
Okay. What? Oh,
How
can I
about
walk
that?
over the edge?
There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the stairs game since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior. And then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
I'm getting real existential. You are now exiting.
Aha. So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
The great and lovely descent. I like it. Am I on a hill? It looks like I'm on a hill. Just a slight one. Yeah, on a hill.
Let's talk about video game development for a second.
Okay.
Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game
Oh,
development.
it's a restaurant. A streetwise fool.
To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well.
Sorry.
The tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
Wait, so can I hold on? Okay, I can close that one too. I'm gonna check out the handicap room first. No. Okay. Sure. Alright. Wow, that's not useful. Ouch. Just smashed the door into my face. Can I hop up here? Almost. Almost. I just kind of get stuck-ish. I want to go over there. Can I? So close.
This
Why am I
prison,
in jail?
funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that.
Oh, okay. I like Coda. He seems weird and artsy.
This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
What are these? Are those dominoes? Neato. Wait, can I hit my head on the ceiling? Is there a ceiling? Huh. Kind of, yeah. I'm just gonna keep trying to walk into this invisible wall. I mean, sort of invisible wall. It's more of a tinned wall. A translucent wall, if you will. Ooh, I like this. This is really pretty. That looks like dichondra. A little bit. I don't think it is, though. I'm not that good at recognizing plants, but it reminds me of that and flat dandelions. Probably just some regular grass. I don't know. I don't know anything. It's the door. I want to check this out. Just smacked my face in dead for no reason, and it said 3 dots again. It's like his signature. Oh, that's where I was from. My bad. I like these random divots, though. It's cool.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time. There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
That's where it came from. Okay. Nope. Okay, I have to, but still. Oh, that's weird. Hello. I'm talking. You there? Did you
Here,
come
Coda
from
begins
above?
using a kind of
What was up
dialogue
there?
system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
Okay. Yes, there was a world stamped with whiteness. Yes, there was an enormous prison I spent hours in. Yes, there were these floating colored blocks. Yes, there were these floating colored blocks. That's the world above. You've been there. Now this is important. Did you have to get through a puzzle with 2 doors and switches? Actually, it's not even a puzzle in your direction, it's just a lever. What are you doing? Anyways, you could also just follow me out. Just another pro tip, whatever. I feel less awful now. Oh, okay. Never mind, it's a lot. Never mind. Yes, do you want to know how to solve it? No, we actually find the blank space between doors to be far more interesting. Have you seen it yet? Actually, now that you mention it, I remember feeling strange as I passed through it. Don't think too hard about it. You'll see it again soon. Okay. Thanks. The other guys had their arms held together. These guys have their arms folded, and this guy has his arms separate. Sorry about all the hopping. I just like it. Hop, hop. I'm stuck. There we go.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
Okay. Ooh, I like this. I can't tell if I'm outdoors or not.
It's a lamppost.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason, Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
Okay, sorry. I was just knocking on doors. April 2009. This game is connected to the internet. As you walk around, you can leave notes. All notes you see are left by other players. Okay. There are no notes. Oh, are you a note? Nice room. Not. I get the feeling he wrote these.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but
How do you
this
beat
game
this
is
game?
not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're going to see have been
No
written
point to
by
this.
Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually. Oh, feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played. But it's ironic, isn't it, that in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me, that I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
Cool cavern, bro. We're running out of space. Soon we will suffocate. There are too many messages in this area. Why? Hey, I can type here. I'd rather be doing literally anything other than playing this. The guy over there wrote much wrong. How do I get to that branch? Oh, what if I... How do I get there? Yes. Yes. I'm scared. Oh, it doesn't even let me jump. How do I get there then? Okay, I'm gonna try going the intuitive path around the side here. And maybe that'll lead me to the branch with more notes to read. Whee. Boing, 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 boing. Yes. What the shit is this cavern? Boring. I can assure you, guaranteed that there is an acorn somewhere here in this place, and the sailors are looking for it. Hey guys, just looking for someone to talk with. Me too. I refuse to believe. Me too. Okay, this one's my favorite. I need to go to the frickin' bathroom. Do it. Do it, little bubble. Do it. Live your dreams. Recognize me, please. I recognize you. You are valid. I'm gonna talk to that other bubble now, but you're still valid. There's nothing here. Go back. Don't listen to that guy. A free t-shirt. Need other side. Door, why you so? Door how open? Open sesame. Makes game, includes door. Cannot open door. Thanks. You're right. Someday I will meet the person who made this. I help people because of the internal good feeling I get. New room. Do you hear the chimes? They keep going, don't they? I would like very much to be desired. Scared of writing something, don't want to feel judged. A game where you leave notes and suddenly everyone's a poet. Don't bother. You can go in here, I think. Welcome. Congratulations. I don't really know where to go with this. Alright. Good for you, little bubble. Have a good time. I failed to write anything here. I am compelled. Stop. Turn back. Proceeding further will only result in misery. Alright. It's okay. Take my hand. Let's jump together. Okay. I think it's gonna stop me, but I'll try. I tried. Cabbage shapes our nation. The Earth Nation. Anyways, there isn't really an Earth never mind, I'm sorry. It was a dumb joke. What is that painting? I was just thinking about the poor little cabbage salesman in
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one.
I have a lot of help with the whispering right now. Whisper, 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 creepy words, creepy words. I've seen everything. I've traveled the world. I've never told anyone. Whisper, whisper. I wish there were notes in the real world. Oh, it's called talking. Become one with the spiraling nonsense, or you can just leave notes around. That's fine. Get some post-its. Downward, keep digging.
In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle
Close your eyes. I
that
wish
he
you were
knows
really
has a
bad.
reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works,
Almost at
and
the
so it
end.
gives him a simple mechanism for moving on.
Does this puzzle have a solution? OMG, I've been here for literally an hour. What do I do? Or what? Help! Help! This doesn't make sense. The second door won't open. How do you solve it? Yeah. Developer, answers, please.
And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment,
I'm heading
a few
back to the
seconds
start
to
later,
reflect on
guys.
and let go of the events that
Guys,
led you
it's
here.
not so bad in here.
To step back and connect the pieces
No
together.
solution.
To grasp at that
No answer, I
elusive
think.
bigger
There's no
picture.
second switch. I almost missed it again. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm super bad at piloting these things. Whisper, whisper, ominous whisper, ominous whisper, whisper, whisper. Oh, we're typing. Oh, we're typing. How do you leave notes? Oh, lamppost. Are you there? Please say something. It can be anything. I just need you to say something. Talk to me, please. Why are you having so much difficulty talking? Speak, 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 speak. Porn stars
Okay, this
die
one is
too.
tough.
That's
It's gonna
true.
kind of just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. Oh, is this the door that opened? Okay. Wait, in that case, I want to see what's out here better. It's a well and a super cool skybox. Okay, back we go. I like this. I would live here. No, I wouldn't. I'd be terribly claustrophobic all the time if I lived here, but I like the style. Ooh, I like this too. I like this a lot.
See, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Here's version 2.
Okay, let's see it. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, where am I looking? Where am I looking? Oh, what furniture ought to go in the center of the room? How about a TV with surround sound, a refrigerator, or put a giant hole in the ground? I'd like a refrigerator, please. That's a table. Okay. Okay, now what about along the wall of the room? Let's put a tables. Oh, it gave me a little desk. That's cool. Okay. Wow, alright.
There's a bit more to this one, but still, it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake.
Where's the lamppost, though?
So, okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
Oh, again. Hello. Please walk forward. Oh, that's cool. That reminds me of playing Fallout Shelter and just looking at little bugs move ever so slightly. Just a teeny bit of parallax. But yes, I will center this and walk forward. Oh, there it goes. Oh, I see. This guide will enable you to escape any prison environment. Alright. Follow the instructions carefully. Take care that you remember each step. First, click on this table. Good. Go over to the photo frame and click to turn it slightly. Now turn the floor lamp in this room off, then turn it back on. Now go to the left side sofa. Move it over a little. Finally, touch the shelves. Are these the shelves? Are there other shelves? I think these are the shelves. Oh, okay, I need to smash into them. That's it. In a real prison, the escape will now open. Return to the start to be taken back to your prison. Okie doke. Return. Or I could have just not gone back, but it's fine. Whatever. I had a house for a while.
And of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape. Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside. Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen of them. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this. To see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop. That particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going.
I can't go there.
And then he hits on something. And he
Okay.
likes it.
Lamppost.
And that's it. He's done.
Lamppost.
He stops making prisons.
Lamppost.
This is the very last version of the prison game that he created. And the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
Okay. It's my lamppost, baby. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Lamppost, 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 lamppost. Sorry, I'm really excited about this. Yes, 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 yes. I don't see how this is a version of that, but yet, apparently. Oh, this is creepy again. I want out. Lamppost, protect me. Oh no, they want me to go in the box, don't they? Lamppost, don't let them take me. Okay, I should just go in already. I don't wanna, but I will. Hello? Who is this? Oh, my only option is, hey, it's me. I'm you from after you escaped the prison. You're me. So you were trapped in this prison too? Yep, I was in the furniture
It's a
maze.
conversation.
Yep, I was in the escape
And so
tutorial.
this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
Do you feel any different? Sometimes I'm scared I'll get out and then things will be exactly the same as before.
can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice? So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself?
Spooky again. Oh, I like this one. It's cool.
To me, this environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the two doors on either side and a dark transitional space between. Just so you're aware, nothing will happen up here until you've been inside the house.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go into the house. Go into the house, and I'm gonna look at some stuff. Probably, I don't know. Yeah, I can get it. Oh no, it's the box heads again. Oh, they scare me. Oh, they scare me. Clean. Well, my goodness, I'm glad as all heck that you showed up. Though I might be having to clean this entire house all by myself, and right miserable that would have been. Everyone knows lonesome hands make lousy homes.
You'll notice that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
This is cute. I like it. That's the story, little one. Oh, don't you worry. We'll be through this mess in no time. I promise you'll wish there was more. Why don't I finish up here? In the meantime, could you please clear the table? Clear the table. I did it. Much nicer. That's the table I wanted to see. Now would you please run into the bedroom and make the bed? Heck yeah, I'll make the bed. Is this? I found it. Click. Yes, I did it. While you're in there, why don't you straighten out the rug a bit? All little details matter. I did it. Do you enjoy being a house cleaner? How'd you end up doing this job? Or it's been a long time since I've seen a house this messy. How'd you end up doing this job? I didn't know it was a house cleaner. I thought they just lived here. A friend dragged me along at a time when I was particularly desperate for cash. Turns out I've never felt so good doing something for money my whole life. Never did like cleaning my own home. I might have got some demons I ain't ready to face yet. Oh, speaking of demons, someone's put this couch all in a mess. Would you come out and straighten these pillows here? Oh dear, it looks like someone spilled a drink over by the couch. Maybe mop that up as long as you're over there. Over by the couch, not on the couch. I feel compelled to share an incredibly cheesy personal insight. You okay with that? Make it especially cheesy. Oh, tell me. No, why not? No, it's not stupid. Please tell me. Okay, I'll wash the dishes, but please tell me later. I want to hear. Last time I checked, the top needs cleaning. How about you scrub it down as best you can? No need to be perfect. We're all just human. Oh, I like this. Are there still books scattered on the floor of the bedroom? If so, would you put them back on the shelf? I like you. Bedrooms this way. Books scattered on the floor. Perfect. Now then, how about you come clear the dishes?
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful. of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was like grossly happy all the time, just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
I like this a lot. Now don't you worry about all that nonsense for now. Just move out that rug in the bedroom. So now we're going a bit of a loop. Oh, the tub. That was here, right? Earlier, when I said I had that really cheesy thought, I was gonna say that it occurs to me that one's house is a lot like one's soul. You take care of it and it takes care of you. Don't know why I felt so weird about saying that. But there's a bit of truth in it now. Baby, no. Anyway, so, housekeeping. Baby, no. Books. Okay, I'll clean up the books. And the pillows.
I'm glad he made this. I'm glad he found some peace.
I like this. This is really sweet. Question.
But,
Do you enjoy
of course,
this?
it can't last. The music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
Okay. Oh, there were never any walls here, huh? Okay, I thought it was glass. I guess I was wrong. And the door's open. And there's a lamppost.
Which is the whole
love
point
your
of the puzzle doors,
lamppost.
right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it.
Items you love
This
and
one
members
gets a
only
bit
prices.
goofy.
Yay. Why did you come here today? Was it to improve your life? Was it to get a better job? Was it to make your relationships more meaningful? No. You came here to be perfect. This workshop is going to teach you how to be perfect. I want your friends, the people in your life, to look at you and think, wow, this person is a better human being than I am. Right now, who do you think about that way in your own life? Who do you know who is so well developed as a person that they make you feel disgusted with yourself, compared to whom you feel useless, selfish, ungrateful? I intend to make you into that person. Perfection is within your grasp. And the question is not how we do it, but how we do it effortlessly. This is easy. It is so easy. It is so easy.
About halfway through the game, the
Being
perspective
perfect is
shifts.
effortless. Oh, it's scary. Either this is the key. How do I
And you
achieve
play
it with
as
no
the
effort?
teacher.
Or
And suddenly,
on the way
you
to
discover
work?
that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now.
Oh. This is the key. How do I achieve it with no effort? On the way to work, I told an elderly person to start contributing to society. Your kids should not follow their dreams. Can I choose? I can. I can say the messed up ones. Kids, follow your dreams. I still love you. It's just that you make me feel cold on the inside. Or being alone must be awful. Being alone
hard for this one.
Perfection, perfection,
I feel like it's
perfection.
one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human.
Oh, I was gonna
I think
walk
about
around
this
the
game
room.
a lot these days.
Aw, I like that one. That one was really sweet. Stage. Okay. Can I still?
This one took a lot longer than all the others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
Oh, that was scary. Alright, the performance is beginning. Places, please. In this scene, you will be playing as me. We are at a gathering of professionals. First, you'll start out leaning against this wall. Good, stay right there. The woman across the room in this chair is a professional photographer of animals. It is your dream to photograph animals professionally. This is your one chance to learn something from her, to gain something, to succeed. Go on, say something to her. Hello? Hello? That's it. That's not a conversation. You need to actually converse with her. Be a human being. Do it again. I'm super scared right now. I like you, or you're all of my hopes and dreams. You're all of my hopes and dreams. I can talk. Don't even worry about it. No, no, no. That's not what I said at all. You're completely missing the tone of the conversation. I was reserved, but I knew what I wanted. I was confident. For some reason, it was just that one moment, but I was confident. Maybe it's that you need a better feel of the setting. There were a lot of people around us. I'll give you some props to work with. These cones that bounce when you touch them will represent the people nearby. Now talk to her again. Either you must have worked really hard to get where you are. I'll bet you've learned to lean into the pain. Or what are some sacrifices you've had to make? You must have worked really hard to get where you are. Can I go? I want to bounce on the cones. Boing, 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 boing. That's really sad. It feels like you just deflect off of people. You can't actually just touch a person. You just bounce back and then they're gone. Okay, art is getting dark. Okey doke. Where's my wall? There's my lamppost. Love you, lamppost. Why is there something past you? I don't appreciate that. My lamppost. My lamppost. Can I just jump off the stage? Probably not, but I'll try. Oh, it's bright. Oh, it's so bright. I can't, but I can see all the scenes clearly when I do that. Hey, lamppost. Love you, buddy. I get scared easy if you haven't noticed.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Coda's life. The solution to social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Coda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very healthy when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games. because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer. But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
And it went farther from the lamppost, too. Mobius trip. To play this game properly, you must keep your eyes closed. Click to begin the game. Okay. My eyes are closed. It sounds really cool. Can I look? I'm gonna peek. I peeked. Why did I go blind? I can't see. And then my vision suddenly went black. There was a giant door, and then my vision went black. I can't see anything either. What's going on? Can't you do something? Can't you fix this? I can try. Oh wow, then you just die. Oh, okay, cool. So I'll just... Okay.
You should
I'm gonna
probably
actually try
open
and
your
do it.
eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
Okay, let's try our best. Hey. Hey kid, what's up? Research. Okay. Okay, we try harder this time. Just a little harder. More blind people. And blind. Blind. Just research, buddy. I think the talk to me one should work. No, buddy, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna try again. And I'm gonna keep trying. It's the SS Whisper. There was a giant door and then my vision went black. Honey, tell me, talk to me. Where's the lever? There's totally a lever, isn't there? Maybe I can find a lever that looks like all his other levers, hidden somewhere in here. Maybe. Okay, I'm gonna also pretend to be blind. I'll help him find his shields. Okay. I'm gonna help the guy find his shields. Also, there's a door here I just didn't notice. Okay, neato.
Right, let me explain how you're supposed to do this. On either side of the room are elevators, which go up to an upper level. You have to go up, walk over to the person who's standing there, and then select dialogue option number 2.
That's so sad. I don't feel it anymore.
Like I said, I was
None
getting
of ideas.
concerned.
It's draining me.
First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way. His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
December 2010. Hello. Oh. There's stuff around me now. Where did this island come from? Oh, there's another island. Is that What's wrong? You look lost. I am a little lost. I'm completely out of ideas. When I try to create, I feel empty. I have nothing left to give to my work. This is sad. Oh no. What happened? Did something change? There was a machine that kept me going and it stopped, or I'm trying to find this engine that used to protect me to start it again. Wait, you're looking for a machine? I think I know where it is. You do? It isn't far. Okay, that's good. What? You have to take me to it, or I need to see it to know why it stopped. I can take you to it, but
If
there's
the
a
last
problem.
game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet, still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for?
Perfect. Come along, I'll show it to you. So I have to
Because
help her solve.
from my perspective at the time and just what I knew of him,
I don't know why I thought
this
it
was
a
a
she.
result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on. You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
Trust me, you'll see. You have to say that your work is fun and easy. You have to say that game development is simple and joyous and that you love it 100% of the time. Sure, making games is easy. That feels wonderful. Why did I feel so awful when I said that? Don't worry about it, just keep talking. Keep saying that creation is easy. It's easy. It never stops being easy. Yes,
Seeing
that's
this game at the
wonderful.
time that
Keep
he made
going.
it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering.
Every time I make something, I feel better about myself. Just stop creating and you'll never feel bad. It's such a simple solution. Perfect. That feels
This is someone I
fantastic.
really cared about. And I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me.
Yes, more. Keep
I
going.
don't know. This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it. I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop. But it didn't stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
I don't even know if I'm recording. Hey, guard. Ma'am, glad to see you've arrived safely. We've captured the machine. It's waiting for you now. You can begin the interrogation whenever you like. I intend to be quick, quiet, or brutal. Quiet. Very good. Just be warned that someone called the press. We might have a bit of attention on this one. Also, one more thing you should know about the machine. It calls itself Coda. Okay. Press, 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 press. Oh, that's the machine.
And of course, it's the machine.
Oh dear. Press, 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 press. My friends, I have a troubling revelation. The machine refuses to admit that it deliberately hurt us. We will find a way to... But this is not important. We are stronger than it thinks we are. Let us show it that we are not failures. Follow me, we will destroy the machine. Or follow me, we will destroy everything that the machine has created. Let's destroy the machine, I guess. Oh no, it's the stage again. I'm so scared of the lights going on, to be honest. Okay, I have a gun. All right. How odd. Can I go into this audience now? Nope. Where do I go?
Remember, you can click to fire the gun.
Oh, okay. I can destroy the world. I still can't go that way. Okay.
So now the work is becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that Code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation. And so, as I'm thinking this, I realized that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for it? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work? So I started showing Coda's work to people. I took this one, and the islands which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know, the point of it all was just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
There's the lamppost. Put down your weapon. I'm not holding a weapon. Okay, I pulled out my weapon. I'm sorry. Okay, my only option is
Can
to
you
fire
see
on
why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good. When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something, I really felt like I'd done something good, like I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem.
I'm so worried.
When they told me how much they enjoyed his games, it was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy. So beautifully, beautifully happy.
Oh no. Oh no, this is not good.
So anyway, Coda finishes this game, and then really he just kind of takes off for a while. So this is June of 2011, and I didn't hear anything from him for several weeks, I guess. And so out of nowhere, one day I get an email, and it's got a private link to a new game of Coda's. This one is called The Tower, and to my knowledge, it's the last game that Coda ever made. So let's take a look.
Oh no. Oh god, I'm worried. June 2011, The Tower. Oh no. Oh dear. Oh no. Oh no.
And this is where I have trouble saying anything meaningful about Coda's work. Because more than anything else, the tower just feels distant. It feels like it's trying to distance itself from the world. It's a very cold game.
Oh no.
This room actually has a maze in it. Except that all the walls of the maze are invisible. And then every time you touch one of the walls, there's this awful flashing and noise. So the experience is really miserable. The game goes beyond not being meant to be played. It actually seems to despise the player for trying to play it at all. But I do want to show you the rest of the levels, so when you're ready to continue, press enter and I'll put a bridge over the maze.
Okay. Well, 128.128. 128.128.
And to be fair, it's not like this is the first game that's needed some modification to be playable. Like the house cleaning game. You know, that one used to actually loop the cleaning chores and you just cleaned a house forever. I had to cut it off so that you could exit the house and the game would actually end. But that game had an idea that it was actually trying to communicate. What's the deeper idea behind the invisible maze?
128, 128.
The only way past this challenge is to randomly guess the 6-digit code.
128, 128.
Like the invisible maze, it's frustrating to me, because it's the opposite of everything else that Coda has made. It doesn't encourage thought or engagement. It doesn't ask anything of me, except a lot of my time. If I could have reached him during this time, then maybe I could have asked him, but I couldn't. I still don't really understand why this is here. I'll put the code on the ground for you here, though, so that we can move on.
No, let me click the lever. I was hoping it was 128, 128, but okay. Here we go. Oh, that's scary. Okay. Whew. Let's go.
The switch to open this door is actually on the other side of the door, meaning that it's literally impossible to solve from this side. So even if you somehow brute forced your way through the first two challenges and you got to this point, there's actually just no way to progress. And it's scary for me, the idea of Coda cutting himself off entirely, just saying, you know, that's it, that's the end of the conversation, not giving me any way to fix the problem. I feel like a failure, I guess, when I can't fix the problem. But I can open this door for you, so let me do that.
Thanks. Oh dear. Oh, there's the switch.
Was I a failure for not understanding this game?
No.
I mean, I don't know why I would be. It's not like everything needs to have a solution, but I feel it somehow. I feel like I failed, and I don't understand why.
No, don't. You'll make
I
yourself
remember,
really
it's
sad.
June of 2011. I'm playing this for the very first time, and as I'm playing, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know this person. I have no idea who this person is. It wasn't the guy I knew, it wasn't my friend. I had come to so many conclusions from looking at all of his work up to this point, and then suddenly none of them...
Doesn't what?
I had been trying to, though. That was the thing. For years, I was trying to get to know him, to understand who he actually was and what he stood for. I asked him so many times to please just tell me what his games mean to him. I asked him please to tell me what the 3 dots mean. And he wouldn't. I just felt so strongly that if I could have connected with him, that if I could have somehow made his work my own, that I would finally be once and for all happy. It was that I needed to see myself in someone else. I needed to be someone other than me. But he stopped and left, and it felt somehow like I had failed. Where did I screw up?
No, you didn't. Shush. I realize it's just a voice I'm talking to, but still. I'm emotional. Let me feel it.
I'm the reason that you stopped making games, aren't I? It's because of what I did. I poisoned it for you. don't think I ever told you this, but when I took your work and I was showing it to people, it actually felt... it felt as though I were responsible for something important and valuable. And the people who played them, they treated me like I was important. They really listened and cared about what I had to say. Even though I was showing your work, I felt good about myself. Finally. For a moment, while I had that, I liked myself.
Coda, you're the one that added the lamppost. You did that. Why are you mad?
And then you stopped, and I didn't have anything left to show people. I just had to be with myself. And as soon as that happened, there was no feeling at all. Nothing. Less than nothing. What does that mean? I'm afraid that I did something really stupid because I don't like myself.
Coda seems kind of vicious at this point. Coda, just talk to your friend. Or your ex-friend, I guess. But still, just talk to people. Don't make ominous words that they can't speak back to. Just upsets them in the long run. It's not good. Oh, I don't like that creepy whisper, but whatever. Oh, there's no...
That's why I'm releasing this collection of your work, is because I haven't been able to find any other way to reach you. I've tried everything. And so a part of me has hope that if I put this compilation out into the world, and if I put my name on it, that maybe enough people will play it so that it'll find its way to you, so that I can tell you that I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. If I apologize to you truly and deeply, will you start making games again? Please, I need to feel okay with myself again. And I always felt okay as long as I had your work to see myself in. I mean, is something wrong with me? Because I know that I did an awful thing, and I'm doing it again right now. Like, I'm showing people your work, but I can't stop myself from doing it. That's how badly I need to feel something again, like I'm an addict. There has to be something wrong with me. Can I apologize? What if I tell you I was wrong? Will that work? Will that fix it? I don't know. I don't think it will, but there's nothing else that I can do. Just tell me what you want. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please. Start making games again. Please help me. Please give me some of whatever it is that makes you complete. I want whatever that wholeness is that you just summoned out of nothing and you put into your work. You were complete in some way that I never was. I want to know I want to know how to be a good person. I want to know how not to hate myself. Please. I'm fading, and all I want is to know that I'm going to be okay.
Well then, my heart's broken. Epilogue time. Oh dear. Is Coda a real person? Is this all just Davy making my heart hurt on purpose? 'Cause that makes a lot of sense. Oh, lamppost.
More love, more praise, more people telling me that I'm good. Always more. It's like a disease. Solution. 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 I guess if someone had told me ahead of time that he just really enjoyed making prison games, maybe I wouldn't have thought he was so desperate. I wouldn't have told so many people that he was depressed. Maybe he just likes making prisons. Even now, the disease is telling me to stop. Don't show people what a shitty person you are. They'll hate you.
Very broken.
If I knew that my life depended on finding something to be driven by other than validation, what would that even be? It's strange, but the thought of not being driven by external validation is unthinkable. Like, I actually cannot conceive of what that would be like.
Baby. Let's go this way. No reason. Let's just do it. Ooh, it looks like a pink slide.
What now?
Slide.
I think I need to go.
Go into your cave.
And I'm sorry, because I know that I said that I would be here and I would walk you through this, but I'm starting to feel like I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot that I need to make up for. And so I'm just gonna...
No, don't. Stay. Please stay.
Okay.
Stay. Good. Stay. Davy? I don't like doing this by myself. It's not as fun. It's a cube. Like the Discovery Science Museum. In that one place. Okay. I guess it's a prison. But the floor's rising. It's nice. Can I get through now? I can. Does it keep going? No, it stops there. Cheers. Okay. I guess I'm done. was so